course, me and a lot of my musical friends always talk about how important it is to be a good showman. To be a good drummer is great, but if you can't hold someone's attention, and you do that very well, but you have to have good stage presence as well. I'm going to ask you, and I'm asking for a specific reason. Do you have a show that stands out in your mind with Poison, that stands out as one of the funnest and all-time best shows that you've ever done? And the reason I ask that, because I was at one thing that I've learned as a musician is, as you get better at your stage presence, your audience gets into it more, and it becomes a much better just all-around show. I was at the show in Nashville, Tennessee, when you recorded Every Rose Has Its Thorn, the video for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Bobby's birthday.
Okay.
And if you remember the show, they brought out a birthday cake that was probably half as tall as you are, and an 8 or 10 foot ladder. And he crawled all the way to the top of that ladder.
Yes, I remember that.
And he jumped into the cake, and his feet went higher than his head. It was a ride. And I always wondered over the years. I've seen metal shows, I've seen jazz shows, I've seen funk shows. To me, that will always stand out as one of the all-time best shows I ever saw. I think Warrant opened up for you that night.
Yeah.
But it was like I didn't know if that was something that you did every show.
No.
Or if it was just a one-time thing, if it was really as unique as it hit me as being, or if it was just props that you do.
You know what? When Brett and I put the band together, okay, we had been in another band prior, okay, and those two guys were just kind of lazy, quite frankly, and they kept getting lazier all the time. It seemed like, and they kept changing what they wanted to be and who they wanted to be and all that stuff. And I felt like we were getting held back. And I remember the day we pulled over in the parking lot and said, "Do you want to have like a freaking Kiss type band, like what we really?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Let's get out from under this albatross, man." I said, "We can't. We're never going to get into it like this." I said, "Absolutely." So we decided to design a band that we would want to see as fans. What do I want to see? I would go and see a band and I'd be like, "Man, the bass player is awesome and he's running around and he's cool and that one part of that song is a great hook, but then the rest of it sucks and that guy doesn't move." And I wanted all of it, right? I wanted everything to be interesting. I wanted everybody in the band to be interesting, And he did too. So we kind of just came up with this idea, and we started making scrapbooks of like our favorite bands that we thought looked cool. We started putting together tapes of songs that we liked the best, that we always really wanted to take from, you know what I mean? And it was an interesting combination. Everything from Sweet to Leonard Skinner, you know what I mean? And everything in between. So eventually, I think where we landed was, at the time when we came out, New Wave had really just, that was everything, especially back east. We're from Harrisburg, Philly area, and everything was that, New York was even loaded down with New Wave, Blondie had hit and stuff, and it was hard to get gigs anywhere unless you were doing that kind of stuff, But I would go into these record stores, and the underground punk rock guys were the ones who were working the hardest. They had flyers everywhere, and they were doing their little lists, and they were just like hard working. I just admired that, and I'm like, we need to take that idea, because they can't get hired anywhere, so they're like putting on their own shit. They're doing their own thing, man. So we started to book VFW halls. We ran out skating rinks, promote them with posters, have a box where we put people's names in. That's how we did it. So our whole idea was, what if we took cats that play, and everybody had an instrument, right? But on a Van Halen level, with a punk rock attitude, man, that was poison. Let's give them 3 chords and the truth, and a whole lot in between. You know what I mean? And I think we accomplished it. You know, we kind of went this way to get there, and that way to get there, and you know, and eventually, you know. So I think showmanship has always been a very important part of it. Otherwise, just sit on most of the record, right? You know, I mean, there's something special about watching a group of jazz musicians really hammer it out and work off each other. And that's a whole thing too. Not everybody gets that, you know what I mean? Which is why it's not as massive as certain pop things or whatever, probably. Remember when David Lee Roth said, you know, the bigger the crowd, the lower the IQ, you know. So you gotta keep that in mind too. You know, Paul Stanley said something about, you know, it's hard to raise the IQ in a place where they sell, you know, hamburgers and popcorn or something like that. But, you know, we've just had fun with it, you know. And over the years, of course, it's evolved or changed, or we've dropped things that don't work as much for the audience anymore, or, you know, that kind of stuff, you know. And I'm getting older. I can't do as much stuff, you know.
It always looked like you guys were having a grand old time.
We have a great time out there.